I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty
Oh
cool.
man,
I missed
that is
that
a
clap.
sad
That's
clown.
Proud
awesome.
of my address.
Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Gloom, bringing you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha packs, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom. Here we go. All right. So I got another guy I get to interview today, and I'm excited because I think we get to prove him wrong. When I first reached out to ask about an interview, he thought, well, I don't really have an interesting story, and I don't, and so I'm just excited because I know for a fact this guy's got a good story. I've talked to him on so many runs, and I've just enjoyed just being next to him. We work in a similar field, but for different companies, and just hearing not only about work but like family. How do you manage stuff going on in life with family? And then he recently launched a new AO in Bellevue, so helping us get to some new communities. I think it's officially called the Bell Tower, but you may have seen it on Twitter as something else. We'll let him tell us about that. But GirlDad, I've got on the show today, so it's good to see you, man. Where we like to start off is just the who EH'd you, what was the first workout like, and then how did we land on the name GirlDad? I'm excited for that story.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Plague. I'm excited to be here. And you really put some additional pressure on me by saying this is going to be, some good content. So hopefully I fit the bill there. But yeah, as far as EH goes, so that credit, is different than the roster would show. So actually, Thomas,
Okay.
uh, who I'd probably give the credit to, although Hog is maybe a 1B there. So both I've been working out with for a while here at my place of work and doing some lunch running and things like that. So, yeah, Thomas finally got to me, and I will say he didn't put a strong EH on me. He mentioned he was doing something new a little bit here and there, and maybe he just knew I kind of had some things going on. But, finally came down to it. It was, I think, May of 2020. So about that time, he was gracious enough to come down south to Sarpy County and meet me at the pit for a workout there. So him and Hog both showed up there, and I kind of walked up and I saw what looked like a pretty fit group, ready to hit a workout. And so yeah, it was great to be there. And Firewalker happened to be on the queue that day, so
Nice.
didn't know at the time, but he can throw, as you know, a pretty hard beat down.
Yeah.
So it is a full hour, of course, and so I kind of get started in that beat down. It was definitely more than I anticipated. I'd been doing some hit style workouts before, over the lunch hour with different groups, and so I kind of knew the format and styles of exercises, but definitely some of the bear crawls across the soccer field and things like that I wasn't used to, and I was kind of questioning, a little bit halfway through if I was gonna really make it, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of where it started. And as far as the naming goes, so um, I happened to be wearing a T-shirt that said "Girl Dad," so I was somewhat of a new dad there. So I had a third daughter there in February, just a few short months before that, and it was actually right on the heels of Kobe Bryant's death in the helicopter crash in
Hmm.
January of 20, and so that's where kind of a girl dad thing kind of took off, and there were shirts kind of hitting the shelves. And I'm a fan of Kobe, the GOAT, whether,
Yeah.
the debate of him and Michael Jordan, we can talk about that later maybe. But, being a Kobe fan and a new dad, I definitely added to the wardrobe there with that shirt. And Firewalker's usually pretty quick on the naming. If you've seen some of his other names, they're things like Things and Stuff, have been out there. So I guess I've grown to enjoy and appreciate my name over time.
Yeah. Well, and you've got this great call sign that Swiper came up with, right? And buy me something.
Yes, he really enjoys the call signs, and as you know, when you go down south, there's a lot of those, and I think many are courtesy of Swiper.
Yeah, well, and being a fellow girl dad myself, I do makes me smile every time I hear it because that is often the call that we hear as girl dads, right?
For sure.
So you mentioned that you were previously doing some running over lunch hour and then maybe some other workouts. Is that just sort of like work culture for you guys? Was it like you would just had groups that would get together and work out? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really was. And different people had cycled through there, but we had a good group here. And we'd call ourselves the Noon Running Club. And,
Nice.
we've been doing that, for nearly a decade, I'd say, or
Wow.
more, and just, extending our runs and different groups doing marathon type distances. And so it was a good group. We convinced ourselves, or a few others convinced us to get in some longer runs. And so it was good. It was a good group, and it was a way to split up the day at that time, and that was in pre-COVID, obviously. So we got a lot of those in over the lunch hour, but then kind of around the 2020, kind of right at that time, I was a few months in of missing that whole group, and it kind of fallen out a little bit, and it
Hmm.
kind of was great to get back out and just connect with people and see people in person and connect at a fitness side and a fellowship side. So it's kind of where it came.
Yeah. So you think kind of the pandemic, so with the pandemic, you weren't in office, weren't able to do the lunch running, and so then that's what kind of pushed it to F3.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd say that and the new baby,
Oh yeah.
at home, and our third child, and she had some additional health complications. So, a couple of those all together, and it doesn't take long for your fitness, especially your running, to kind of fall off where you were. And so it
Yeah.
did, and so getting into this group really allowed me to kind of jump back into it. And I'd say I'm very much a kind of a group, type of a workout person. I don't do a lot of solo runs. I do it,
Hmm.
occasionally, but that group and that commitment of meeting, different guys out there is something that really is a motivating factor for me in terms of fitness.
Yeah. Well, and so it's so funny. We in this group we do like, bear crawl 100 yards and you're sort of like who does that, right? But I guess we do. Were the workouts you felt like were they challenging or how did you go about like moving from going to the pit to posting at other sites? Like did you go the pit and then a Murph or what was your
So yeah, about that time, there was not a lot going on in Sarpy. We had the pit and we had the sand lot. That was it.
hmm
And so, for a while, I'd travel up north and hit occasionally some here and there. But again, the times that we were in and with a new baby, I was not an everyday poster immediately.
yeah.
So sparingly, I'd come up there, and in a few short months after that, um, is right when we had the Nantan change, from wait time to Tater. My
Yeah.
gosh, it's like slipping my mind here. I'm focused on wait time and saying that. And the reason is, back to my fitness level, I remember that being like such a humbling experience because, I'd never met this big group. It was obviously a well attended, transition of the Nantan flag. And so we started out in this giant, circle, of course. And what do you suppose wait time started with? A stynal.
Steinel. Yeah.
A stynal. So we got down in this stynal, and I remember looking around and just being like, what the heck? I am so out of shape. Like,
Oh.
I'm wanting to fall to my knees here. And that was, I'd say, more humbling than the original workouts that I'd went
Mm.
to. So I do really remember that transition to the Nantan flag.
Yeah. And where are you at today from like a fitness standpoint? You feel like you're back to maybe pre-COVID or pre-baby, or you feel like how you
Yeah,
doing?
I'd say definitely, especially as sites started ramping up and the growth that we are in as a community in terms of F3 Omaha and what that grew into in the Sarpy area, the sites really added up. My attendance to different days really started to ramp up there over the next year or two, and really started to hit, pre-runs in addition to beat downs. And I know everybody kind of says that, but that's kind of been something I've committed to is I rarely go to a beat down without doing a pre-run.
Yeah.
Um, and so the running kind of caught back up, later in that first year towards the end of 2020. I got some additional buddies out. I EH'd a few people right away, guys that I was really looking to connect with that were in my friend circle already, but I hadn't really seen a whole lot face to face during that time. So I put
Yeah.
on some EH pressure and got them out. And,
Nice.
I remember in December, we did the Santa Saunter,
Yeah.
down that way. and my running wasn't quite there. I think I committed to a 10K, and some of the other guys that I was with that I knew did the 10K, even some of their first 10Ks, and we kind of had the course planned out and met the people doing the half marathon, and yeah, I really remember that. So that was kind of where I got through that 10K and felt a little bit better. I'd kind of reached a level that I was comfortable with in terms of fitness, how I was kind of maybe pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, because I've always kind of thought a 10K is a good measuring stick as a runner. You know,
Yeah.
if you can get yourself to a 10K at that point, your lungs are totally fine. Like at that
Hmm.
point, it's just how sore my leg's going to be. So it was good to get back to that baseline.
Well, and you, was it last year or this year or both that you've ran all of the halfway house half marathons?
Really, I kind of ran, I did 16 straight. So really that
Okay.
running is addicting, for me. And I kind of got a addicting personality. So the running was kind of taking hold. And so the halfway house, when that started up, that was obviously right up my alley, as with a lot of others. So
Hmm.
that was really cool to see that officially started. And, it's one of those things when you start a streak, you hate to end it. And,
Yeah.
and I know people have streaks way longer than that, but I got through 16, and it even included one or two that I had to do by myself because, I couldn't make the actual Sunday, but committed enough to that streak. And then, unfortunately, like most of us see, an injury will pop up here and there. And so I had to bow out and finally end that streak,
Mm.
but I did do one here just back in May, popped into another halfway house and did that one on the Memorial Day run, which was great to do out to the cemetery. So, plan to get back a bit more consistent, hopefully with a halfway house soon.
And it was your foot? What injury? What
I
you
mean, when you're in your mid 40s, it can be about anything. First of all,
just a full
it can
body?
start at the foot, then it's your hip, then it's somewhere else. You change your gait, and all of a sudden you're a complete mess. So I'd say that's kind of what I've been dealing with. And we have such a wealth of network of people. I seek advice, and people probably think I'm complaining too much, but I'll be hitting up Icy Hot, or hitting up Retweet and
Yeah.
Zorro, getting some PT advice there on the fly. So I'm trying to slowly get myself back to full running health.
Yeah. No, I do the same, right? I remember, I don't know. I've never received a bill in the mail from either three of those guys. So I don't know. Maybe they like giving out the free advice, or they don't know my address, either one, but they give good advice. I don't know. And it seems to work for
Yeah,
me, but
hey, they do, and it is to that point. We have a great network of resources in this whole F3 community, and that's one of the advantages is to lean into that network,
hmm.
for some access to certain areas you might not otherwise have. So.
So you had mentioned just being somebody that likes to work out with other people, and I couldn't agree more. I'm curious how has it been just sort of going through the injury? Have you been able to still stay connected, or have you struggled there, or what's been your experience?
Uh, yeah, essentially, when that kind of injury first kind of popped up at the end of last year, December, January timeframe, I was in the middle of site queuing, the bell tower
Yeah,
down here, and you don't miss that site. And
yeah,
I kind of mentioned I can't go and not miss the pre-run, so
yeah,
I kind of have just run myself through it, and it's probably something we all should take a little bit of time off once in a while and heal up. But I wasn't afforded that, while running the site. So,
yeah,
kind of just run through it. And it's been all right.
yeah. Good. So you're toughing it out. I like that.
Toughing it out like we
Yeah,
all try to do.
changing your shoes, or yeah, no, I like that.
Hey, yeah, I brought two pair of shoes this morning. I worked out, ran in one, worked out in the other. Yeah, just change out the equipment.
Nice. No, I love that. And I think, a lot of guys will say like the second FPs, right? Especially if you're running pre-runs or even halfway house, the second F piece really comes into play there. And I remember I feel like it was maybe a run down at the pit, and like we like just got started running, and I think you're like, so when's your next date night with your wife? Just immediately got into this like conversation of like, oh crap, I need to be prepared and ready to go. And I love the how quickly we get there, with the guys in F3. But I'm curious, what from your perspective, where have you found that fellowship piece within the group?
I mean, it's a consistent theme. You hear it everybody everywhere, and the pre-runs obviously are it because you have the opportunity to talk.
Hmm.
During the beat downs, you get segments or pieces of talking depending on the working, but you just get such solid straight time. It's quiet. It's just a little bit smaller group, a subgroup, so the conversations tend to open up, and I think that's obviously key. And then the other fellowship side on the flip side is at the end of the workout, with coffee and making some time for that, when it's available. Obviously the
Yeah.
summers are a little easier for most, and so that's been time that I've really enjoyed. And I got right into the coffee and on-site coffee from the beginning, in terms of the bell tower, and made that a staple, and really tried to promote that, as an attraction or a draw. I would maybe try and troll khakis a little bit to say it's the best coffee in F3 Omaha. But come to find out, when I had some coffee with him, we were both using Kirkland Dark Roast. So there's the secret, everyone.
Okay, good to know. That's awesome. What do you think, from like, so you've got, runs and just the conversation there, coffee. What do you think about some of the other, like, have you done much like with Q Source or Queen Service or any of those other pieces? Have those been effective for you or?
I would say I've done that tangentially, so not like officially, but guys that I knew are doing it, and I'm kind of asking them questions. And should I be doing clean servers? Yes. I haven't done it and committed and done that directly.
Yeah.
The Q sources, for me, have been somewhat of a challenge, just because of the times and offerings that I can go. The
Yeah.
pit started it up somewhat, after later, and I wasn't going on Saturdays as much due to personal scheduling at that time, and going more during the week, as we've now have multiple sites every day through the week, and running a site on Fridays. I was pretty spent, by the end of the
Yeah.
week, so I was having to build in some recovery, and then try and get home to some family earlier on Saturday. So I've hit some of the Q sources occasionally, up at Paradise, and just the conversations are just so engaging, and the way packs open up during those just Q&As, and then somebody will talk, and it's almost hard to find a place to insert yourself. The conversations that I've been in, because people really dive in really into some deep topics, and I've enjoyed the handful I've got to attend for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious when you look at like your relationships with Hog and Thomas, so previously you were running, but still sort of work level relationship. Do you think, I mean, moving those relationships within the framework of F3, did that change anything or I guess I don't know, what was your experience there?
Um, Not really. I mean, we still communicate and talk. It's just I'm generally not posting at the same sites that they are, specifically just due to geography,
Yeah.
and we're pretty spread out. But, um, just last week we were able to meet up, the three of us, and do a ruck together. So instead of doing the beatdown, we met up and just did a ruck and had a great
Nice.
conversation. So you just have to be intentional, about any of those things, and making sure, yeah, I don't see him during the lunch workouts as much anymore, but, kind of like any relationship, you have to be intentional about making time for that. And time is the thing that every one of us is short on, especially in the
Uh,
stage of life that we're all in, like Elon Musk has said, time is the ultimate currency, so what
mm,
we do with our time, is very, very important, and what we prioritize, and the relationships that we all maintain are a
yeah.
big part of that. So
Yeah, well said, man. I love that. I think you're absolutely right. It's just cool to hear you were able to maintain those relationships and develop some new ones within F3, And remind me, so you've got three girls, and
three
then
girls,
so I guess what are their ages?
13, 9, and 3. And I know many have more girls than that, so
Yeah.
girl dad actually is, as you know, girls, it's not the quantity, it's just a handful, no matter how many you have. So
Yeah.
yeah, 13, 9, and 3. So entering some
Okay.
fun stages and all kinds of stages of childhood. I kind of got my
Yeah.
involvement teenage years down to the younger years.
That is, yeah. And remind me, so I guess you know, if you're okay sharing, but I feel like one of the stories about you that I really have appreciated just with your daughter and maybe some of the stuff that she has gone through and your journey in that space. I think it would be your youngest daughter then, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
okay.
yeah, absolutely. So, again, she was born in February of 20, yeah, so right before COVID, really took hold in March. And she was in the hospital, not diagnosed immediately, but it's something that came on very, very quickly. So she has a large segmental hemangioma, which is kind of a vascular type of condition, a birthmark condition that can get very, very aggressive,
Mm,
throughout the first few months and years. So it really took off. It was something that, gosh, just reflecting back even now, I just think about we're in such a better spot, first off, right now compared to what it was 3 years ago. So I want to be clear, things have gotten much, much better. But,
mhm,
I'll never forget that when that kind of happened, we hadn't even left the hospital. And we're finding out these things, and it's a complete shift. And I've always kind of thought, everything for me seeming has just worked out or been perfect. No, I don't say perfect, perfect, but I haven't had anything really happen to me individually that's been a huge challenge, until this.
mhm,
I just remember that it was a tough day, all night there, with my wife trying to understand, how we're going to handle this. What is this? What does this mean for us? Why me? These why me type of feelings.
mm,
But ultimately that shifted to, not me. It's just, why is this little, child going to have to go through this? And it was pretty intense, what we all went through. I guess, it's so rare. I don't think there's ever been her condition in Omaha or anywhere around her specifically,
mm,
at least a version of this. So, we're trying to see specialists. We immediately drove to Children's up in Wisconsin because they have a specialty clinic that deals with this. So, we have doctors calling us from New York City who are specialized in this, and that kind of opens your eyes immediately. We're like, wow, I have these world renowned doctor from New York City like calling me on my cell phone to check,
mm.
on this condition. And so it kind of is like, wow, this is pretty serious here. And so, since that time, we've taken her coast to coast. She's been through several
Yeah.
treatments out Los Angeles, and she's been to New York City. But she's in a great spot now, and it's not over. She'll have some challenges still to overcome, but like I said, we're night and day compared to where that started out. And
Mm,
the support of this group, I can't say enough. Like through that and having this outlet to lean into, in that time, of uncertainty, what was going on, Tater Tot, I butchered his name earlier. I needed to come back and say and he has a way of doing this for everyone. It felt like he was my best friend, like through that
yeah.
whole, ordeal and just washing out. And it wasn't just him, it was
Yeah.
several, but it was very, very powerful to lead into this group. And I know others have done that too through similar challenges as you and and I've heard Swiper talk about this. You make these small deposits into the group, and you're going to have to take withdrawal at some point. We all will, and leverage
Mhm.
the group in a time of need. And that happened to be mine, and it's better now. And I know what the group did for me, and so I'm really, really aware and try and look out for that for other packs that might be dealing with not the exact condition, but a challenge that I can like provide some leniency and support for them.
Yeah. Well, because at one point you were like, once they figured out a treatment, you were flying to like, I feel like what I remember specifically a conversation of it was like your routine was like every couple
Oh,
weeks we'd go
yeah,
fly.
yeah. Every Yep, every 2 months or so. Yeah. So we flew her out to Los Angeles 8 times and have gone through treatment. And like I said, it's not over. We'll have to do some more. We're just kind of reached a kind of a stable period here where
Yeah.
we're just letting her be a young kid running around and growing and learning from her big sisters right now. And like I
Yeah.
said, we're in a real good spot right now.
That's awesome. Well, it's good to hear. And I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's just like you said, as men having space to have those conversations and process these things that are just unpredictable or unexpected. Yeah, that's really cool. I appreciate you sharing that.
And it's one of those things, I guess, just one more thing to add that, I had close friends and close friend groups obviously before. It's just when you don't know that you would open up to that level to those groups of, high school friends or college friends or maybe some
Hmm.
work coworkers or others. And this group really makes it clear that they're there and the vulnerability is options are there to lean in when you need it. And definitely took advantage of that. So encourage that to anybody out there who might have something going on. Just find somebody. It doesn't have to be in the circle of tears or
Yeah.
circle of grief
Yeah.
that you described.
Yeah.
It because I get emotional too in those environments.
Yeah.
It's you're right there in the center of attention. It's like being on stage, but it can be in that pre-run. It can be in a coffee. It doesn't have to be in the full group. Find what's comfortable for you and then just have a conversation because I know everyone in this group is there to listen and help.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great insight. I think you're absolutely right. It doesn't have to be, if you need somebody to pray for you or need some encouragement, you don't have to wait till the circle of tears. I like that. That's from Blades, right? Uh,
Yep.
no, I think that's really good insight because you're right. I mean, anytime you can, just get that out, and if we know, chances are, if somebody knows somebody that's going through the same thing, we'll connect you, and if not, we'll support you ourselves. So it's really good insight. I'm curious when you look at, so you've got from a fitness perspective, things are going well, and then from this faith perspective, or sorry, the fellowship perspective, right? You've developed some relationships in the group with a lot of the running, and then kind of this thing going on with your daughter, and I don't know if there's a faith element there or but where does the third F sort of fit into the picture for you?
Yeah, the faith component, especially related to my daughter early on, and my wife ran across this, this one quote, faith over fear.
Hmm.
And we kind of made that a theme of ours very early. We wrote that, we put that up at home and kind of leaned into that component of it, to trust and have faith in the whole process we were going to go through, or she was more going to go through. And so we kind of leaned into that. And as far as the background, of faith, we're all a member of a Catholic church down there in Papillion, so all the kids go to school there. Definitely don't miss, church, been doing that since we moved down to the area. So definitely leaned into that group as well. And a lot of the people in that whole community, the faith
Mhm.
community that we're in, are in F3, so it's kind of blended both groups, at the same time. So.
Nice. No, that's awesome. Did you grew up in the Catholic Church and then just kind of kept that routine or tradition?
So I wasn't quite to the Catholic level, I was
Okay.
just a little bit, I'm a Lutheran,
Oh
so
yeah.
I grew up Lutheran, attending church, in Sunday school from the time I was a little kid, and my mom would take us. My dad rarely attended it at that, so it's something we went with my mom
Mm.
every Sunday. Leaving, just in time and rushing in late and sitting in the balcony. So still really remember that, and we, went through the whole time we were down there for all the way through confirmation, through that. And like most, you go to college, other priorities
Um,
kind of creep in, and you drift a little bit, and then eventually you get married and you come back to it. So
mm, mhm.
that's kind of how it's played out for me anyway. And so it's been good.
Yeah.
I attend every week. I get a lot out of, attending mass with the family there and listening into the message. I key in more on the homily than
Yeah.
anything and trying to see, well, what are they saying? What can I connect to here? So that's, it's been great.
Yeah. So you mentioned there, and so like when you were growing up, your dad maybe didn't go with you guys, but you as a father are going every week. I mean, when you think about, reinvigorate male community leadership, and it doesn't have to be church, but just I mean, what are your thoughts about like dad being a leader in his family's sort of spiritual journey?
Yeah, I think part of it is just society's changed a lot, in
Mm.
terms of how they view the role of a father compared to how it was,
Yeah.
you know, 30, 40 years ago, like, when I was there. So my dad, he would attend, he'd hit the important ones, Easter and Christmas,
Yeah.
those and a few in between, but his job at the time was, unscheduled. So he'd have times he was gone on
Yeah.
weekends, at nights, And so it was a bit more unpredictable in terms of his schedule. I'm not trying to, insinuate that he was absent or anything like
Oh,
that. He was not.
sure. Okay. Yeah.
Trust me, I had chores every day, and he
Got it.
coached me, in every sport, and he would just show himself through other ways, and that changes over time for everybody's,
Yeah.
relationship with faith and how that works. And so now, I guess, to put a bow on that, my dad actually has probably stronger faith than I do. It's kind of been
Yeah.
crazy, like looking back, he's completely changed, and maybe it just took getting us kids out of the house and driving him crazy. But and
Yeah.
so yeah, the role of me, now in this spot, is setting a good example, and going with them, and going through the whole ceremony with them and listening. I'm not allowed to take communion, that, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I do everything else that I'm allowed to do. And I always joke with people, and I always joke with my daughters that I'm going to sneak through and take communion. And it gets them so worked up, like I'm going through this time, but
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm at a Lutheran church on 90th and Blondo. So if you ever want to come take communion
oh
with
yeah,
us,
maybe I come up there, once a quarter or
yeah,
something.
yeah. Be good to see you. No, that's awesome, and I appreciate you clarifying too, because I think you're right. Right, it's just not everybody's job is supports this every Sunday going to church, right? But they can you can still lead your family spiritually even without that. What do you think about faith and F3? How do you see that third F piece playing out in the group? Like, what experiences have you had with other guys, or maybe COTs or prayers?
It's just interesting, F3 makes it a pretty open concept, a belief higher than yourself, and some people relate that towards, a God of some sort, and other people relate that third F towards community service, or maybe a
Hmm.
service aspect of faith, which I think is great. We're not here trying to dictate what people should do, or what church they should go to, or where they should spend their service hours. It's just that, I think it's important to have some aspect of that. You choose which one you're going to use your limited time for, as we've kind of talked about. And
Yeah.
so I think it's been great. And the prayer side is especially, powerful. I think, we have those prayer intentions. Getting back to the ball of man, the last few years, that's such a difference, physically,
Yeah.
getting in that spot to pray, and just learning to pray out loud. I was terrible at it. I still am terrible at it, but at least you practice it a few times and you can kind of figure it out. But it can be a little bit nerve wracking, at first to get comfortable doing that
Yeah.
as well. But it's been awesome. I mentioned some people are good. Swiper charges $5 if you ask him to pray.
Does he really?
Yeah, he'll tease that, but yeah, I just think it's because he likes to talk so much, that he's into that. But
Yeah,
it's
no, that's a little side hustle. I like that.
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's awesome. It is really cool just to see guys learning to pray out loud, right? Even if we have maybe a different version of the higher power or God. It's just cool. I love hearing what's on people's hearts. And I think it's really you hear it come through in the COT, right? A guy will share some sort of quote or something that in my mind has at least a spiritual sort of realm to it.
Mhm.
So I think the other thing I really want to get your insight on, because this doesn't happen very often in F3, and we're on the, at least in F3 Omaha, we're on the brink of doing this again, right? So expanding, official like expansion to a new community. So we did this when we went from F3 sort of Omaha proper into Sarpy, and then we've done it kind of with West Omaha, but that's been more natural, organic over time. We're getting ready to do F3 Bennington coming up in September, but you were really, I mean, taking us a little bit further into Sarpy County and going F3, Bellevue with the bell tower. I mean, what was that like? What's been your experience? What's worked? What hasn't worked? I mean, talk us through all of
Gosh, this could go on a while, so I'll try and break this down. I mean, we've been in such heavy expansion since I started in 2020. It's just crazy if you look back at the numbers and the data, which you, like me, enjoy analytics and looking at that type of stuff. But
that.
the growth rates are just crazy to look at. And you know, early on, I really enjoyed knowing everybody in F3. So first of all, that was kind of a change that I just didn't enjoy. Like, all of a sudden I was down in Sarpy all the time, and I missed seeing the regular guys up in Douglas County. But it's inevitable, we need to grow. Like, this is important for us to expand, this great community and this great thing that we have. So you can miss that. You can cherish that time and look back and appreciate it. But it is important to continue growing and expanding and giving this away, as Firewalker kind of likes to say. And I've come to appreciate that theme. And so as Sarpy expanded, we were already pretty well established. We had sites every day, already, at this time when we decided to forge east into B-Town, over in Bellevue. And so the farm was pretty well established and had such a great culture with Ferdinand that he started down there. And Shroot was the site Q when I was going to kind of starfish out here to Bellevue. So, first of all, being asked and challenged, I guess I'll say, by Firewalker and Jean Claude and Knobs to say, you got this, at first, of course, you're apprehensive. You feel I think it's different. Or at least I like to think it's different than just taking over or just starting a new site in an established community, to head over there. So I don't live in Bellevue. I'm close enough, but it was, again, I don't have like a circle over there that I knew was going to come every day, especially with the group around me that was already attending the other days. So it was a challenge. It's a bit nerving, but ultimately, they convinced me to get over there, and I leaned in heavily to Icy Hot. He had been a site Q. He lived in Bellevue. He's traveling around, every day to go well into Douglas County and Sarpy County, and so I knew he was going to be a great resource to help me get started there. So, had him meet me there at Bellevue West, at the campus, and do a walkthrough, and consulted a few others and going through the pop-ups, tapping into Doppler and to some people up north that, I knew had worked down in the Bellevue area and were familiar with it. Just tried to learn a little bit about the culture and how this site maybe would evolve over time to make sure I'm setting things up for success there. And so quite a bit of planning kind of went in and ultimately took the leap and started it. And everything kind of took off from there, and arrived on Bell Tower, as the name, and a Bellevue play and tower in terms of buzzing the tower with Offutt right there, and kind of combined that into the Bell Tower. And of course, quickly right away, it took its alter ego, Bells, you think Dong, and it turned into Dongtown. So really, I think most people, at least in Sarpy, know it as Dongtown. Like, still, we joke about it.
They're like, what's this Bell Tower?
We might have to update the map with the new name because it's really taken off. So
yeah, I know we don't allow guys to change their names, but we have had one site change because originally Red Wings was just called the Murph, and we realized that you can't do that now when you have 5 different Monday Murphs.
That doesn't scale.
Yeah, so maybe we could change it. I don't know. That's a good question. What and so I mean, does just that the name and I don't know what, like the humor, speak to the culture that you feel like you've developed there? Just guys getting together Friday morning and able to have.
I mean, it really does. I enjoy smiling and having fun. And so we kept it pretty lighthearted and really played off that name and had a lot of fun with it every week. And so the culture of the site really, it just took hold. We got some local guys that live in the Bellevue community to come out, right away, and they've pretty much established it. So I feel comfortable with kind of getting a core group down there and knowing that, okay, I'm confident this is going to take off and be, a Bellevue thing, and Bellevue will be a site that stays on our map. And so we know that next week we're starting a brand new site. ICB is going to start a Murph site on Mondays, down in Bellevue. And so, and then not long after I started that, Farva had, of course, the Catamount Complex, which is, just over off Cornhusker there at Gross. So it's close. It's in the Bellevue community. And so, it's great. And especially being a brand new site, like I mentioned, Farva, we were communicating back and forth and we were coming up with some ideas. How are we going to market this? How can we get this to take hold? He's calling up contacts at the Bellevue Leader. We're like, we got to get a story in the newspaper. We've got to, do this. And we still have hopes of doing that. I'm not taking that off the table. If anybody has any contacts in the, Sarpy Times or Bellevue Leader, certainly send them our way and we'll get a story ran. But
Yeah.
it's kind of taken off organically and really throughout the whole year, we averaged 14 guys,
That's
which
great.
was perfect over time. And that's taken even a few outliers like the launch out of the stats and the few VQs that we had. So it's pretty well established, well supported, and we had 14 there today. Ironically, I was there this morning, so it's
Nice.
been great.
How do you think, or what do you think it was that, like, to go into a new community and engage some of the local guys? Like, how did you spread the word, or is it just word of mouth? I mean, what's the tactic there?
So it was some word of mouth and just some contacts that existing packs had with maybe some people they knew were in Bellevue, and then the Douglas County guys, they'd come down and, hey, I know somebody in Bellevue, so I'm going to get them to come out and I'm going to drive down there and meet them. And then so really making sure we had a good handoff there. And this isn't anything new. I'm not, no
Yeah.
secrets here, but just keeping in close contact, with those people when they started to make sure they get the glue,
Yeah.
like of the
Yeah.
glue,
Yeah.
and so I just text messages, words of encouragement, during the beat downs, watching their early growth, as maybe they're somewhat newer to their fitness journey, and just being positive, continuous feedback, and just letting them know that, this is their site. This is not my site in Bellevue. This is theirs. I'm helping to facilitate this and turn it into whatever it organically turns into, like every site, most sites I would say have a lot of best, pull-ups in the metro, best whatever in the metro. And
Yeah.
I still haven't maybe made one of those up for the bell tower. I think the new site Q maybe can do that on his own. But again, I didn't want to do that, just to make something up. I want that to form and grow organically and naturally, and no doubt that it will.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's exciting, and to think about the Murph site launching Monday, and just, this is kind of how it starts, right? And then, hold your hats for, whatever's around the corner. What tell us a little bit. Well, so I guess two things. Curious if you have any advice for maybe the guys launching in Bennington, or other site queues, and then would love to hear about succession planning and how you approach that.
Yeah, sure. So I guess starting in a new area of town, a new community, without a doubt, it'll be a little bit of an extra pressure. And so, just have confidence, like the group is going to come support the site. Like, first off, so there's more to worry about than that, I guess, looking back. It was probably one of the things that was weighing on me more than anything. And now just looking back, I'm like, why was I questioning that? People will come. Especially, we want to see this succeed as far as an F3 community in Omaha to these outlying brands. We know how impactful it can be. These communities, deserve it. Gretna grew, Bellevue is growing, Bennington, all these outlying communities. It's growing like the city of Omaha originally did, inside out. So it will be successful. And then that is just, again, don't put too much pressure on yourself, I'd say, up there. Like, I didn't start up, you brought up Q Source, I wasn't going to bring in all of these extra offerings right away. I did, first off, it's a lot to do that all, by yourself, starting a new site, but I didn't want to bring in too many extra things starting in a new community that some people might come in and be like, oh, what is this? They got, 1, 2, 3, 5 different things going in. I don't have time. I can't commit to all this. So
Yeah.
I kind of made a decision kind of strategically in Bellevue's like, that'll come, like much like it did at the pit, I would say, or other areas of town. I was just like, I'm not going to try and do every possible F3 offering we have, of the 3Fs at one site,
Right.
all right away. So, I think it'll all come over time.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. What about succession planning? How's that been?
Oh, I was taking applicants early on, for
You had them
succession.
apply?
Started an application process. Yes,
Yeah.
I definitely no, really there. It crept up on me, to be honest. Like I was just kind of immersed, having fun, and then you start looking at the calendar, and the months just start rolling by. It's the theme of this right now. Time is the ultimate currency. Like all of a
Uh,
sudden, the years fly by, especially the older you get. So it kind of crept into the year, and then I'm thinking, holy crap, I gotta start thinking about this, and I didn't get turned down by anyone. I had one name and kind of I started with there, Stranglehold. Um, and I've seen his growth, over the
mhm.
last year or two through F3, and how he leaned into this community, with Chris, and Nugent, and what that's meant to the whole group. And I just thought, I started seeing these signs. I've shared this story, with a few others, but I travel for work occasionally and I'll hit downrange sites. And so this particular time I went to Philadelphia and hit a site in Philadelphia. And of course, I don't know anyone. It's dark. We go around or saying our names at the end, and I hear Tim Gradaville, and I hear Gradaville. I took a double take, and it's Chris's cousin. Like, and this is right
Mm.
after, everything had happened. And so I was like, I'm making these connections and I'm placed randomly. I'm not in like downtown Philadelphia. I'm like somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Valley Forge. And just how do I keep running across these signs, of this? And so it's just one more thing that I knew. Stranglehold is ready. He's a great leader. His acceleration, and in the running aspect. Of course, I'm a
Mm.
pre-runner, a little bit of bias there,
Yeah.
and what he's done, in the Mortimer and the halves, and he's really just ramped up. And I just see how connected he is throughout the whole F3 community. He's known throughout Douglas County. He's known throughout Sarpy, and I just knew especially growing into a new area. I knew he was going to be successful. He's a great leader. I had no doubts he was going to do great things, and he has all these other good attributes. And so I pressed him. I pressed him pretty hard. It took a little bit to get a commit. It's like any EH,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
but once he showed a little bit of a crack there, I broke that right open and kind of just said, tag, you're it, and I basically made it a done deal
Yeah.
at that standpoint. But then he happened to be having a baby himself, somewhat new, and so he's a new dad of a little baby boy. And so that was kind of coming down the pipe of how can we transition this flag. He's having a baby in August. So I set that date. He said he was ready, and so we got through it. And
Nice.
I love still going over there, and I just walk in there, and he's leading coffee. He wasn't gonna I wouldn't let the coffee thing go. I was like, hey, we got to get this figured out. Here's the supplies. Here's the Amazon items. We made sure we transitioned everywhere because we don't go without on-site coffee down in Dongtown.
That makes a difference, man. I think you get quite a few more guys participate in that if you can do it on site.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, anything else you can think of that maybe you didn't get a chance to share? And I know, man, it's just good to hear from you. I don't get to see as much anymore with me moving and you being in Sarpy, but it's good to hear you're doing well. Anything else you'd want to share with guys that are listening, though?
I don't want to turn this into the longest gloom podcast ever. I feel like we'd sit here and talk a while, but might have to do a part two about a few things. And the only other thing I'd maybe touch on is just the VQ side, and how
Hmm.
that's one of my favorite things about F3, and being able to see people, plan for those and go through those VQs. So
Yeah.
definitely continue to try and support all those and get out, because it means a lot to everybody doing that. And so looking back, I guess one more story. I still remember back when I started in 2020 into 2021, people weren't doing a VQ like right away. Like it seemed to be like you had to like be in it for a while before you felt like they were even going to ask you, to come
Hmm.
queue. So I'll never forget. We did it in February, and there was 3 lined up. We had High Life, myself, and Baby Shark, like all lined up in February. Maybe Knobs was trying to steal all the VQs from everyone, but
Yeah.
so it was a great VQ, and in freezing weather, in February, but yet people drove from all parts of town to come down to that thing, and so that's great. It's a great memory of mine in terms of F3 and what's done for me.
Yeah, I think we've somewhat identified like it creates a little more glue if we can get you to do a VQ within a couple months of joining, right? Like the sooner, and I don't know, I think at some point, um, it's weird, right? Because you come into the group and you know it's led in a rotating fashion, but you don't know how, like, you don't know, like, am I supposed to ask or are they going to
Yeah,
ask
that's what
me?
I get at. Yeah, it's like an
Yeah.
odd.
It's like a weird thing there. Yeah. Well, tell me, currently just, whatever's going on in life, anything that you need prayers or encouragement for. I mean, is there anything when we see out there that we should be nudging you on?
Oh, I mean, the only thing I would say prayers and nudging on is to continue to get out there and post. You
Yeah.
lose that flag,
Yeah.
you don't want to lose that incentive to get back out there. So I don't want to fall off from doing that. And so, no, I don't think any of the guys around me will let me fall off too far. But
Okay.
definitely keep me nudging and get me out there. It's a little bit nerve wracking when you're driving around and not putting that flag in the ground.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Maybe we'll get you on the F3 Omaha tech and data team. We could use
hey,
some leadership there.
we're both in the industry and we both enjoy analytics. So I would really appreciate that.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, it's good talking with you. And see, you had way more content than you originally thought. So I love it. I think people are gonna love hearing your story. Let's
Hey, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
yeah, let's do a little name-orama. Brandon Flehardy, 37, The Plague.
The Plague,
Ah,
David Hilliard, 43, Girl Dad.
girl dad, buy something. See, I think that's one of my favorite ones. I don't know.
Oh, and it's true. You know it more than
Yeah,
anybody.
yeah,
One thing, the fist bump through the microphone is different. We couldn't like kick feet like people
yeah.
still do from 3 years ago. So,
Yeah. Well, it's good seeing you, man. I appreciate your time. Have a good rest of your day.
hey, you too.
Later.
Later.